Hello, my name is Robert Pucci and the show is Creative Minds, and my guest today is Nicole Quinn, writer and filmmaker. And today we're going to talk about the creative process and her movement from writing to filmmaking and her projects. So welcome, Nicole. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So where shall we start? Let's go way back to your childhood.
Good. Okay.
So what was your first creative opus? Did you write poetry? Did you make little films?
I did write poetry. We all danced. My sort of de facto godfather was David Lachine, who was a ballet dancer. My brother was his protege. I watched Mitzi Gaynor's pre Las Vegas shows in my pajamas, that kind of rehearsals. But we were never expected to be in show business as people of color. We were expected to be attorneys and doctors, and this was. And I was in a boarding school, and so I had a captive audience, and I produced my first play when I was 5 years old, and it was Peter Pan. I played Peter, of course, and then I produced it again when I was in grade 6, and I played Peter, of course.
Sounds almost like Eugene O'Neill's father. They're doing the kind of money.
I don't know. It was an acting thing. I think it was kind of code shifting. My sister and I had integrated the school, and after a while, the tours where they'd always point you out to people, and so I started wearing flamboyant clothes and sort of acting out, I guess, to be noticed of my own accord as opposed to just because I was the only brown one in the room.
Okay.
So that was my introduction. I went to Berkeley. From there, I was going to pre-law, and I was having kind of a hard time assimilating from a school of 300 girls, and I'd been a boarding student since I was 8, to this 37,000 school of where do I fit in. So I auditioned for an acting class because it was someplace where I knew I could play, and I got in. And before I knew it, I was a double major of dramatic arts and dance with a pre-law emphasis.
Well, entertainment law.
Yeah, well, okay. And I'd been accepted to Bolt Law School. I did mostly theater. I crammed in the requirements whenever I could. And then I was going to go to Bolt Law School. I was 10 credits shy. And Professor Dunbar Ogden, I remember him really well, coming to me and saying, "You should be on the stage." And I said, "Well, you're going to have to get me a job because there's no way I can explain that to my parents." And 2 weeks later, the Berkeley Repertory Theater called me and said that Professor Ogden had arranged an audition for me. And I went, I auditioned, they gave me a season and a union card, and I never looked back.
Never looked back. Now, so you started out as an actor, and when did you start to, feel that, I should be writing my own material, but also you were directing as well?
Yeah, I started out as an actor. I was primarily an actor, did soaps and a lot of theater, mostly Shakespeare and the Greeks. When I was at Berkeley, they sent me to London to study at Lambda, and so I had a pretty good classic inside track. I guess when I became a mother, I was 30, and I'd done a lot of token lawyers and hookers and shit like that, and oh, sorry. Do we have a time delay?
No,
okay.
That's all right. That's an acceptable word.
Oh, good. You speak French too.
Yes.
And I kept thinking there must be something more. And being a mom, I don't know. For women, when you become a mother and you have an active life, it's such a pull because you want to be a really good hands-on mom, and yet in the world you're given so little respect for that job. And at the same time, if you're a creative person, you need an outlet. And so I started writing when my daughter was taking naps. And I thought, well, I'll write some roles for myself because there are never any roles that are about me. I would walk into auditions and they would say, "We don't want your conservatory voice, dear. We want your actual accent." And I'd say, "You want me to talk like this? I can talk like this for you. But I'm going to tell you now, I learned this in conservatory. This is who I am. This is how I learned to speak in life." So it was that kind of conflict of living on that razor's edge of cultural reality and thinking, well, maybe I could tell stories that aren't exclusively urban, violent, and ghetto.
I think that in choosing like your project Racing Daylight, that's obviously it's a kind of movie that would have a a great difficulty in being made through the system.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So
I never even circulated that
Right,
script.
right. But what would be some of the things, you know, let's like, I'm presenting your treatment or your script. You're the Hollywood producers. What are you telling me about my script?
Well, about Racing Daylight, I can tell you exactly, you know, because there are a couple of people who said, send it to this one, he'll help you raise the money for it, he'll get this, and you send it to him and they go, okay, well, it's 3 short films that tell one story in 2 different time periods, with a lead actress over 40. Yeah, okay, that's really commercial, saleable film. But I believe that great artists, you know, good storytelling and good and interesting characters, and for me, that's what you know. I'm a niche film watcher. I love films. Anyway, they would come to me and they would say, well, you know, I think if you made it one act, you know, like, you know, just blurred one film, let's take that out, and let's boost the secondary love story with the younger lovers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, I just think things a little too heavy-handed, the past, all the past. So can we do it all in the present and just allude to the past somehow, you know?
One or two flashbacks.
Right. So basically, everything about the script that interested me is gone, because how can you then talk about time in that odd way if you're asked to write something in a linear fashion? So, and at that time, I was, you know, when I wrote Raising Daylight, my mother, my brother, and my sister had all died in a really short space of time, and I was trying really hard to figure out how you move on from that much grief. How do you live after that? And Racing Daylight was, for me, a roadmap back to happy things, and it's such a wonderful, for me, quirky little story that, and it came out whole in its all of its interweavings that I could never have plotted it.
And it's sort of beyond genre, right? I mean, if it, you know, if you had to put it in the.
I have to do it all the time. They ask me. I say, well, it's a ghost story, it's a murder mystery, and it's a love story which crosses time. That's just, you know, how can you high concept it in one sentence, which you have to do in Hollywood, you know?
And of course that would lead to a lot of puzzled looks.
Well, it's too hard to sell. So what it taught me was that in a way to position it, to make it attractive to sell, was to submit it in niche markets that were interesting. So, for example, we sent it to the Wrath of Khan Sci-Fi Film Festival. We got in there. We sent it to the Troma Dance people, Lloyd Kaufman's people, B-Movie Company. We got in there. We sent it to the women's film festivals. We got in there. We sent it to the romance film festivals. Well, we got in there too. So suddenly we've got 5 different ways for a distributor to look at selling our project. We won every festival we went to. So now we have a distributor on who's releasing us on DVD in December. They say out of the 5,000 films made last year, 2% got distribution, and we had no backing. So we feel like we've really accomplished something.
Yeah, no, it's a major accomplishment, and I think you've. Do you think it was your insight into the business that helped you, you know, recognize that you don't have to do this specific marketing? But I think that's really the
internet.
The internet also helps.
It's the salvation of independent artists everywhere.
Yeah, I think it gives them a lot of latitude, lets them network.
Until the walls of restricted access go up, which they ultimately will, and the new paradigm forms around it. Right now, it's just open territory, and you can reach whoever you need to reach.
Yeah, well, I think like filmmaking now has got kind of freedom that it hasn't seen since the silent era, where all you needed was a camera and an actor.
Well, the crash of the market affected the film industry in a huge way. Lehman Brothers, for example, $54 million of their deficit last year was in slate funding for films. So the film industry has taken a hit in the past 2 weeks in a way that makes the whole paradigm shift, where we're committed to making one good film at a time. They've been encouraging us over and over again to submit a slate of films, 3 to 5 films, or to make films for more money. I want to make films $1 million and under, cost effective, you make your money back, and everyone shares in the profits. If you work for more than 3 days on a film with us, you're part of the profit participation. So it's just about building the new paradigm and making it work in a way. I mean, I couldn't make Racing Daylight anywhere else but here for under $500,000.